Sal, can you lead us in the pledge, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our veterans, our first responders, those fighting the good fight in Ukraine, and those brave souls that lives were lost in the earthquake in Syria and in Turkey. Thank you. Walter? You're gonna
Yes, we need to motion for the Board of Finance to reconvene this evening.
So move.
Second? I second it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Walter. Motion from the council to reconvene for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? And speaking with the chair, kind of a house rules is if we could keep the questions to budgetary questions concerning the budget. I think sometimes in our passion, we kind of go a little bit farther, which lengthens the time for those that are department heads waiting to be interviewed. So if we could just kind of keep it cognizant that this is concerning budget. And if you have some additional questions, I'm sure department heads or anybody would be glad to talk to you outside of our budget hearings. That being said, I'd like to start the first with Sal. Do we have anybody for public comment?
Yes, Mayor Mike Sanella.
If anybody's here for the traffic authority meeting, that's been canceled, so if you're here for that, it's not tonight, just so you know.
Traffic.
Mike Sanella, 111 Willow Springs. I'll just do the quick version of the AV for everything for tonight, since there's some folks here that probably don't come to these meetings on a very regular basis. So first things first, we are streaming live to Facebook and YouTube. For those watching at home and calling in, please remember to either mute your phone or mute the stream on YouTube or Facebook if you're watching online, so we don't get any feedback. I also recommend if you're participating via call-in, please do not use a Bluetooth speaker. That often loops back as well, and I highly recommend using headphones if you can. That said, for the folks in the room, as you can see, there are a lot of microphones in this room. For the folks at home, or if the folks who want to watch this in posterity on YouTube or Facebook, please use a microphone. I'm speaking right now into this microphone. If we need a second presenter, we have that option here with this microphone. All you have to do is be standing roughly in front of it. But if you're going to move like 6 or 7 feet over there, no one's going to hear you. 6, 7 feet over there, no one's going to hear you either. So if we could please at least try to be using these microphones throughout the course of the night, that would help greatly. I think that's going to cover everything. Because we've had some problems in the past with certain elements of the AV production, if you guys have any problems with, say, the call-in situation, you need me to turn the volume up, turn the volume down, whatever you guys need me to do, don't be afraid to say, excuse me, just take a minute, Mike, can you please, and just shout it across the room so we can get it taken care of quickly. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
No more public participation this Mayor.
Thank you, Sal. For our first department, IT. Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council and Board of Finance. To start, we're going to cover the personnel line. As you can see, we did see an increase this year. About 55 of that, well, exactly 55 of that, is going to be for the addition of a new employee. Up until recently, there was just Ken and I, which I'm sure most of you are aware. Average organization has about 1 member of IT to every 18 to maybe 40 employees. With this new addition, we are now down to about 1 IT professional to every 100 employees. So this addition was much needed. He was interning with us for a while, very much proved his worth, and now is a full-on member of the department. So very welcome change there. The rest of that change you can see is going to be due to the non-union increases per the non-bargaining unit compensation subcommittee. Our professional services remains unchanged. That line includes our penetration testing and risk assessments. Our contractuals, you can see we've changed slightly. A large amount of that is going to just be due to inflation, and one line did see an increase due to the additional staff. We have a software we use for remote support. Someone calls us and says, hey, can you look at this issue for us? We remote into their computer. That's licensed on a per member of IT staff basis. So that was added to our contractuals. And our materials and supplies, in consideration for the fact that we do have the additional staff, we don't have desks and what have you for that individual. So our materials and supplies did go up this year, and our capital is unchanged. Any questions?
Any questions?
I heard on Thursday night discussion about the library being now part of services you will be providing more.
That is correct.
How's that reflected here?
So I believe a sum of $35,000 is expected from the library. Essentially, the library released one of those positions, and in lieu of that individual handling their IT needs, it is being handled by the town IT department.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, of course.
Any other questions for Dave?
I just have one question.
Of course.
On the personnel, you said it very quickly, but
Sure.
I'm seeing, what was the third thing that you said? I see a 15% and a 24% increase for the two people who were there. Is that right?
So I think what you're seeing is the increases due to the committee that gathered for the non-union
Okay.
increases. So you'll see that. That's going to be part of the $81,360. The remainder of that is the $55K for the new employee.
Okay, and so this year, you had no oversight of the library functions, IT functions?
We did to an extent. We were working in unison with the individual who was in charge. We were also participated in some of the topics in and around construction. But as far as full-on being responsible for their IT needs, that is a recent change within about 6 months. Time certainly flies. But yeah,
Okay, thank you.
of course.
Any other questions for Dave? Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next is the Sewer Commission. Mr. Whitman.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Can you get back and intro the people who are here when you get back to the podium?
Oh, yes, that's the idea.
Can I have them too? There you go. Good job.
You get two?
Oops.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the Board of Finance. I'm John Whitman, Chairman of the Sewer Commission, and I've been before this auspicious group for many times, and combined groups, and the council even more times than that. And tonight, I'm going to introduce my management team. These are the folks that run the organization, and I'm so happy that they are my support. And I have Chief Operator and Process Manager Michael Ducey, the Operations Manager Kenneth Cook, and the Business and Employee Development Manager Kathleen Tereso, and Mr. Jack Healy, the DPW Director, is also a WPCA consultant for us. But I'm going to turn that over to them and let them tell you what's going on, and we'll be open for questions. Kathleen?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and Board of Finance. I'm here to present the budget for the Sewer Commission. If you turn to your first page, you'll see year over year, we've only had a 1% increase, which is pretty good. Then on the next page, we get into the nuts and bolts of our budget, which, with the salaries, which includes any overtime, holidays, because the sewer plant has to have somebody there 7 days a week, every day. So that includes also operator certification, which I do believe in the next fiscal year, we're going to have somebody going for a 3 and a 4, might possibly also be a 2, and they do get paid bonuses when they reach the next level of their certification. So we have budgeted for that $812,540. Then there's also the employee expense, which is benefits, which includes training. Starting this year and going into next year, they are going through a lot of training. They have confined space training, OSHA certification and everything. So we have budgeted for that, $489,911. Utilities, we've gone up a little bit, only with the increase of fuel, oil, and also with the electricity going up. We have budgeted $280,400. And then we have laboratory expenses, $35,000, which has gone up just slightly, I believe, from last year. Maintenance is $192,000, which has gone up a little bit due to, again, the costs of everything going up. It has rolled down to us, so we have to increase our budget on that. Our septic and fog, we have at $25,000. Process expense, we did increase because our Synagro contract came up for renewal in December, and they have told us they are increasing, and they're also charging us a use tax for the roads that the state of Connecticut has implemented as of January 1st. That is at $364,900. And then we also have miscellaneous expenses of $8,500. Overhead expenses of $146,329,000. And our capital expenditures is $660,000, which we've kept stagnant from the year before. So we have a total operational expense of $3,014,680, which matches with our revenue that we have estimated from our billing and any sort of septage that we receive in. The next page is our capital improvements. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike Ducey so he can go over that with you.
Good evening, Mayor Bass, Town Council, and Finance Board. Here's some capital improvements that we've accomplished over the course of the year. We refurbished our sludge storage tank. It included a deep cleaning, and some electrical and mechanical replacements. That's all accomplished. We performed major upgrades to our lakeside septage receiving unit. That is a device that processes septage from trucks that dump at the plant and take all the rocks and floatable material to protect our pumps in the process. We resurfaced the WPCA's driveways and parking areas and included some drainage upgrades. We noticed that some drainage points were sinking and cracking, and we wanted to accomplish that before it got any worse. And that was in conjunction with the DPW. With Mayor requested and council approved ARPA funds, we purchased a crawler camera, and that device is used to inspect all of our drainage systems and underground piping that's subterranean, so we can go through and check all of our pipes and assess the pipes and repair as needed. And it will be a joint effort with the DPW. We will use it for our sanitary sewage piping, and they will use it for street storm drain inspections. We have a trailer that's going to be purchased to house the crawler and all the appurtenances that are needed to operate it. And I'll turn over the rest of the capital improvements accomplished to our operations manager, Ken Cook.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Bass, Town Council. My name is Ken Cook, Operations Manager. Going to pick up where Mike left off. We've rebuilt major portions of our Water Pollution Control Authority's heating system. We've also contracted for a long-term in-depth maintenance plan with the same company. This is going to help us to avoid future issues and major malfunctions. We've replaced the split cooling system for the old administration building that contains our laboratory operating employees and our personnel, as well as our safety equipment and storage. That's also an ongoing process. We're investigating better communication options for our sewer lift stations to communicate with our SCADA operating systems. That's also an ongoing task. We've completely revamped we are completely revamping, our ArcGIS mapping technologies for rapid field response to respond to maintenance and emergency issues, and that is also ongoing. So flip over to the next page. We're also very proud that in the last year we've had several certifications with our employees that we currently have staffed. We're at a class 1 with 2 certifications. We have an operator with a class 2 certification and 1 class 3 certification, which is myself. Mike Ducey is holding our class 4. We're at a head level count of 10 WPCA employees, with 1 WPCA consultant being Mr. Jack Healy, who's currently not here. We have 3 managers, myself, Kathleen, and Mike Ducey, 5 operators, 2 administrators. We have 1 consultant, again, Mr. Healy, and 1 budgeted operator for next year. That's the conclusion of our report. Are there any questions?
Ken, any questions?
Thanks. Under the, Kathleen, you were speaking about this, under the employee expense and benefits, and the training is in there. Is that training for them to reach the level of the inspector level 1, 2, 3, 4?
There is some training that they can take. They get, I believe it's from the books.
Certification levels, our studies for California, Sacramento, we have safety courses, OSHA courses, we have OSHA 30 courses, flagger certification courses, and refreshers yearly. We just did hearing screening.
Some of these are required.
Yes, ma'am.
Some are required.
And some are annual.
And some you need also so they can keep their
Keep up the certification.
your
Correct.
credits.
We have to maintain a certain CE
Right.
level to keep our certifications at par for the state.
Of course.
And the state requires that any operator after 2 years have a minimum of an operator class 1.
Great, thank you.
Alex?
A couple of things, thank you very much. One, were there additional reports you had to do for the state, for example, because of COVID? Can you talk a little bit about additional work that has been done in the last couple of years with regard to reporting on testing results?
Mike?
I have seen those types of investigations going on to try and get a handle on how the COVID-19 outbreak occurred. We were not approached for any of that type of research. And the reason being, I believe, because we have a lot of septage that's co-mixed with the regular sanitary sewage that comes in, so it skews their data. They were using mostly large metropolises for that type of data to have a more accurate definition of the problem.
Got it. So the other question is, how many households are served? How many businesses? How many municipal buildings? Can you give us an idea? And how many are using the system?
3,000 total.
About 3,000 total.
3,000 individual, that includes everybody, businesses, households?
Yes,
And municipal buildings?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question. This is from the audit, so if you don't have the information, I understand. Just in the non-current assets, the 1,225,362 number, I'm just wondering, why is that? Why is 1.2 million of receivables? Why is it in the non-current? And what is the prospect for collecting on that? Do you know that? Have you seen that in the audit? It sits in the.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at that one. I don't have it.
Because it's year after
Yeah.
year, so I'm just wondering, why that's
Sure.
on there as
Yeah, I can.
Do we know, does anybody know why?
I think, and I'll double check with
Yeah.
Greg, but I think many years ago, there was a large receivable, right, John, that was on the books. And our finance director, when he took over, said that really wasn't receivables that he felt could be collected. So what they did was they really got rid of a tremendous amount of those receivables. And the receivables you're seeing now are some that are being done. For instance, part of that is the town itself pays for connection fees and sewer fees. So that's what you're seeing on there, is this is getting taken down over time. But I'll make sure that Greg gives you more of a thorough synopsis on that
Okay.
than I just did.
Thanks. That's it, thank you.
Walter?
Yeah, just a question. What capacity of the plant is being utilized? Do we have excess capacity, or are we on the lower side?
We're on the lower side right now. Our average flow is 583,000 gallons every 24 hours. We have a design flow of 2 million gallons per day. The one part of that we're taking advantage of and using is the solids loading and organic loading. That I'd have to look at
Ballpark
the
is fine.
data to give you an exact number for that.
Yeah,
But we're
ballpark
using a
figure is
larger,
fine.
sorry about that. We're using a larger portion of our organic loading and solids loading to receive septage.
Now, you mentioned you're doing about 500,000 gallons, you're 2 million. Is there a minimum gallon that you have to have flowing through there, a minimum to keep the equipment?
Yes, we have a
Functional?
minimum flow. The minimum flow is usually about, I was just looking at that today, about 5,000 gallons,
Oh, okay.
somewhere around there. Again,
So
I'd have
you-
to get you perfect numbers and look at our data again.
Yeah, you're close enough.
But we usually have our average flow, an instantaneous peak, and then your minimum flow. Our instantaneous peaks have been an average of about 169 million gallons per day. And the plant is designed to take peak flows of 4 million.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions
Sorry,
on
just
sewer?
one last question, which is the transfer in. So we still transfer in 1,314,000 from.
So the transfer in is a combination. Part of that combination is connection fee monies
Right.
that the sewer
So part of
collects.
their revenue.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
If I could add, the partnership that we have with the Department of Public Works is phenomenal. It has allowed us to do things like purchasing that crawler camera, to do the trailer, to help with the redoing of the driveway. That was done by contractors who work for the DPW or report to the DPW, also DPW employees. We are trying every step of the way to have a cohesive, one-town view of the way we do business, and to have everyone involved as best we can, whatever department can help us. So that has been phenomenal for us, and I think that's part of our success.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Sure.
Jack Healy has been an excellent asset in addition to our operation. He is very good, and it's great to have somebody with his experience and vast knowledge as a part of our team now.
Thank you. Okay. Next is, we have the Commission on the Arts. Hi, Lou. And we have a handout that was presented to us. Thank you, Lou.
Good evening. I'm Lou Mandler from the Commission.
I'm sorry, I missed your last name? Your last name?
Mandler. And I first want to thank you for your past support of the Commission. And I especially want to thank you for approving the appointment of a full slate of Commission members. It's the first time that I've been on the Commission that we've had a full slate, and that they're very involved, and they're not just people who warm a seat during a monthly meeting. So the commission has a lot of energy now and feel very positive about what they're doing and what we can do. We will, of course, continue the good work that other commissions have done, but we also hope to do more work in coordinating with other arts organizations in New Milford so that we can sort of make New Milford an art destination. And of course, as you're aware, New Milford is applying to be a cultural district, to have a cultural district, and that should complement our efforts. I think that'll be a boon, I think, to that goal. So to the budget, and you do have a handout. Excuse me, the first page is just sort of an overview. Our expenditures really come under two major categories. The first are the events that we sponsor, and that includes the concerts on the Green in August, the carols sing in December that we do, and we have done the last few years an art walk, which the businesses have helped us with. But this coming year, we plan to revive the New Milford Arts Festival, which had a good run of, I think, 15 years or so. But the last one was in 2014, and we think that if we can do something on the green instead of just off the green, that will draw more people to New Milford, so we're excited about that. I'm also currently working with Deborah Rose, the New Milford Poet Laureate, on sponsoring a poetry contest with the New Milford Library. Just another example of coordinating with another organization in town. And I've also met with Dean Gray and Ellen Corsell of Marial Arts Center, and there again, we're working on some coordination among the different art organizations. But to the budget then, as you can see, the proposal for next year has a $6,000 increase. And the reason for that increase comes under the category of the grants that we have issued to different organizations who have applied. As you note here, this year so far, we have granted money to the Apple Fest, the Riverfest, Merwinsville, Timberlake Film Production, Gallery 25, and I anticipate we never know who's going to apply. I know Mariel is going to apply again. In the past, we have contributed funds to restoring some of the paintings at Harrybrook. We helped the Silo send some young people to Radio City. We've funded some things that VCA has done. But for instance, I received an email earlier this year about a film production company, and they wanted to apply for a $5,000 grant. Well, I sort of had to gently tell them that we've never given that much money before. So we did give them something, but I just feel like if we had more money, and I think we're receiving more requests than we have in the past, and that's why that is an increase for a proposed amount. As the attachments then, the first attachment after that gives you a view of what the proposed was last year, and then the last sheet is a detailed summary of the proposal for this coming year. As you can see, we never know for sure who's going to ask us for money. But these are some of the people that we expect might ask us for money in the grants to support community art events. And I think that's it, unless you'd like me to go this over item by item.
Any questions for me? Katie?
Hi, thanks for doing this. What sort of what sort of things do you do to bring in grants for the Arts Commission? Or any income, I guess?
Okay, I think a lot of that is word of mouth, but we also, our website has the application on the website, and so that's, very public. And I think a lot of people I think we'd like to get the word out more, and that's one of the things we've worked on this year, is making our website a little bit more community-friendly and a little bit more obvious.
So you're talking about grants to the Arts Commission? I'm not
No.
talking about what you give out.
No.
I'm asking if you do anything to receive grants for the
Oh,
Commission
I
on the
see,
Arts.
I'm sorry. Well, a lot of the grants that are available from the Connecticut, the humanities are for nonprofit agencies, and we're not a nonprofit agency because we're funded by the town. So a lot of those we can't really apply for.
So there are none that would apply to you, because you do receive funding from the town, you couldn't apply to any of them?
Well, I don't know if there are not any, but the ones I've looked into are for nonprofit agencies specifically.
Right. Do you do any fundraisers?
We can't fundraise, it's my understanding that we can't fundraise.
I see. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
The ARPA funding, the 125 for the, was this to this Arts Commission that we,
It's for artists. Yep.
through this commission?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Park and Rec.
Park and Rec. And for some reason. Let me see if that's actually on. Yes. Okay, great.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Dan Calhoun, the Director of Parks and Recreation. This is Alfred Esposito, our Park and Rec Commission Chairperson. And I'd like to introduce our newest employee, Graham Musson. He just started with us yesterday. He's a new Director of Programs and Special Events for the town, so we welcome him aboard. So I'm here this evening to go over our budget and give you a quick overview. Currently, we have 5.5 park maintainers who maintain the 20 parks, which is over 500 acres, and plus we maintain 17 town facilities. Also, for full-time staff, we have myself, Graham, and 2 secretaries in our office. Also, for our programs, as you can see, we try to offer a wide array of programs to meet all the different classes and groups within the town of New Milford, all age groups, whether it's children or toddlers, all the way up to adults and seniors and teens. Next is our revenue generators. To offset our budget, we have certain revenue generators that we use, whether it be for our program fees, for all our recreation programs, our stickers that we sell for the different parks. We also do food concessions at different parks in town, and all our recreation programs like summer camp and things like that. We also have application fees for the use of our parks and facilities. So that is what we do to offset what the taxpayers have to pay. For this year's budget, we're requesting a budget of $1,380,697. Our total anticipated revenues, which includes the recreation side of our budget and the park side, is $594,870,000. Our goals for this year and going forward, we would like to provide quality and affordable programs for all of our residents in New Milford. We want to be able to maintain and offer attractive and clean and safe places for the people to go to, whether parks or athletic fields. We'll be trying to increase our revenues through additional programming, rentals, and appropriate increases. Other goals this year, we're trying to finish up our cricket pitch at Clatter Valley Park, replacing a fencing at Emmanuel Williamson Park, turf renovations at Clatter Valley, and repairing cracks at the tennis courts at Youngs Field. And with the help of DPW and my staff, we'd like to repave Addis Park. With that, I'm here to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Any questions for Dan, Alfred?
Yeah, I have a question. So the approval, the repaving of the tennis courts, or the repair of the tennis courts, so that was done last year, you said? Or you're hoping to do it?
We're hoping that's a goal of ours to get
Okay,
that done.
that's
It's in
where
our
that was
budget this year.
In the surplus
Right.
funding, that's
Right,
in there,
correct.
okay. So I guess I'm just having a hard time, and I'm trying to nail down my questions, but it's a 6% increase, is that about right?
Yeah.
Overall? And 35,000 of ARPA fundings, roughly, and 250,000 from surplus towards capital.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering if you can explain the increase, the high, the increase.
The increase in this year's budget?
With all of those additional funds coming in.
Well, our increases are based, most of our increases are based on minimum wage increases over the last 4 years. That's been a huge increase, $1, it's been $1 every year. So in order to keep our staffing levels that we need, we have to bump the salaries up to get quality people. Whether it be a summer camp counselor or supervisors or lifeguards, we're really having a difficult time finding employees.
Yep.
There's a lot out there for people, and we've had to bump up our salaries in order to attract people. Especially with lifeguards, it's very difficult to find lifeguards these days. We've been pretty lucky with it, but if you look at other towns, they've closed their pools and everything else because they can't find lifeguards. So with our increase, last year we were able to continue to hire and find people that are quality candidates. Other increases are, we have
inflationary driven. For instance, busing doubled. The bid doubled. Everything across the line has gone up exponentially. So it shows in our budget. We use a lot of gas. We use a lot of things that just have skyrocketed in a year. That plus the labor increase is just, unheralded.
And a big part of our increase is for the summer camp program. We're trying to revamp. Last 2 years, we've really tried to increase the amount of kids that come to our camp, make it a better place for the kids to go, have more offerings, have more trips, have stronger staffing levels. So that is a big part of our expenditures.
The enrichment, right? Every day they're going to do something.
They're going to do something. They're going to go somewhere.
The feedback we got was we don't want our children just parked in a classroom. We want them doing something every day, and that's what we're giving them. That costs us a little bit more money. Now, we raised our fees, but not commensurate with the additional cost to give the people what they ask for.
Katie?
How many summertime people, part-time, I don't think you hire full-time then, but how many summertime employees?
Summer camp alone, just the counselors, there's 25 of those, plus there's the supervisors and other staffing. So that's probably, you're talking.
And the lake?
in the lake, you know, 15 lifeguards. We have a park ranger, a park manager.
So you're up to, what, about 40?
Yeah.
You know, just quick in my head. So,
But Katie, in addition to that, don't forget, a lot of our programs happen in the summer.
Yeah, of course.
So people who run them, okay, are also part of our uptick in
absolutely.
personnel.
No, that's why I know you have a lot, and I understand that the need to hire people in in all of these places. You can't run the camp without it, and you have to be able to pay them what it takes. And I do know the buses went up, so.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you that I hear nothing but good things about the camp, even though the kids might not want to, or their parents say they don't want to sit inside. I know they don't just sit inside always, but I think that's laudable that you're taking them out to do things. I mean, that's what people want.
Yeah.
That's coming close to an enrichment experience as opposed to just being a camp.
Right.
And that's good. Good for
Any other
kids.
questions?
With all the discussion about increased costs for good people, you have the full-time park maintainers and the administrative personnel. Those two didn't go up at all.
They're in the middle of contract negotiations. The secretary union and the maintainers who are part of the Teamster union,
Got
they're
it.
all in the middle of contract negotiations, so that's why there's no increases shown.
But you know they're coming.
They will be coming, but we don't know what that will be
Got it,
at this point, yeah.
got it. And I definitely understand how difficult it is to get good people for summer program and lifeguards. I absolutely understand that. And you have to be competitive with other jobs they can do, right?
Yes,
I got it.
definitely.
There was surplus from your department that contributed to the surplus we had for last year.
Mhm.
Quite a bit of money,
Yeah.
actually. And so the question is, what made that happen?
Normally, it's, when we do our budget, especially for recreation programs, we have to budget for the max, what we think we may do. And sometimes the classes don't fill, or we don't have as many sessions because of weather, or they get canceled. So there is some money left over in like the self-sustaining programs. So the money would come back to the town. So that's where a lot of it comes from, those type of things.
I did a little math. It looked like it was close to 20% of your budget over. Wow, okay.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
And just one last question. So from last year, we had 78,000 from the waste management fund. That was to offset some of these capital expenses? Okay. So, and then the surplus as well. I mean, this might be a later talk of, do we have the budget to do all of these amazing things? Maybe that's, I don't really have more questions for them, but I'm just wondering, at one point do you say, yes, we can do 6% increase, when we're trying to keep the budget flat because of.
Well, if you were looking at departments, I look at it all in totality.
Mm-hmm.
So our budget this year is a 2.46% increase. If we're looking at the mill rate, because that's what we look at, right?
Yes.
So if you take the last 5 years, matter of fact, I have it right here. I'm glad you brought it up. So I take the last 5 years mill rate. Let's start with the year 2019. We had a 1.87% increase.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mills were at 28.17%. In the year 2020, we had a 0.09% decrease.
Mm-hmm.
In the year 21, we had a 2.47% decrease in the mill rate.
Mm-hmm.
In last year's, we had 1.7% increase.
Mm-hmm.
This year is a 2.46% if the mayor's budget is approved and not adjusted by the council nor the Board of Finance. Our mill rate will have gone up 0.98%
Correct.
in 5 years.
Well, it's
I
an
find-
increase
I
this
find
year,
that-
but just to finish your
No.
thought, it's an increase this year and an increase of taxes.
What I'm saying is, for the past 5 years, we've had a 0.98% increase in our mill rate. I think that is pretty amazing, especially when we're looking at inflationary pressures of between 8 and 12%. It's all about how you manage your
So,
cash.
I understand that very well, and thank you for the clarification.
Certainly.
But, you know, the town's not the only one with inflationary pressures. Inflationary pressures are hitting households and people.
Absolutely.
So, you know, fuel costs are up, rents are up, everything's up for people. So inflation hurts individuals. So we are raising taxes despite getting 8 million and a 5 million surplus. So I'm saying, I'm pushing with every single person that comes up here, how can we make this budget flat and not increase taxes at all? That's my question.
So I wish it could be flat.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with inflationary pressures, that's something that cannot happen. Prime example, for instance, you're looking at the educational budget, which will be before us in Thursday. They're up over $3 million.
Well, that's why I'm pushing back on everything that they've put in their budget. Like, you know, do we have the budget to repave, to repair the tennis courts this year, or do we, you know, like I keep saying,
So,
all
Hillary,
of
great,
these issues. So
great question. Absolutely
Right.
great questions. The things we have to be cognizant of, right, is with inflationary pressures of 8 to 12%, if we delay some of our capital expenditures, as we've been known to do over many, many years,
yeah, it's not.
those costs only escalate and become worse, because those are things that you're going to absolutely have to do, whether it's repairing a roof that hadn't been done for 30, 40 years,
I understand.
whether it be parking lots, whether
Yes.
it be at our parks, at our schools, at our town. If we use today's dollars, that's going to be a much better investment than holding off and letting the inflation eat our dollars each and every year.
And as to
Yes,
the
sir.
tennis courts, Dan keeps a very rigorous maintenance schedule so that we don't ever let it get past the point to where we have to rip it completely out and replace it.
Yes,
Which has happened in the past,
Yep.
years ago. So we ask that you don't let it get to that point.
Right.
Because this is far cheaper than the alternative. If we let a year or two of water and frost and freeze hit those courts, we're ripping it out and replacing it.
Right,
Far
I'm
more
just saying,
expensive.
I'm just saying that each department has to hammer down, like social services, they presented a flat
Understood.
budget.
I can only
You know,
speak
they
for the
do
tennis court.
umpteen number of things for the town also, so I'm not arguing, and I don't know, I haven't gone through actually each item. I understand maintenance is essential. I'm just pushing back a little to try to get us flat, but thank you.
Absolutely. Katie?
Yeah, so,
It's Diane Clay here, calling remotely.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Diane.
Thank you so much. Sorry, Dan, I'm sorry I'm not there to ask these questions, and I think that Katie might have just touched on them, but I can only hear every other word again tonight, so I'm gonna ask, I think, again. Going to your expenditures, I see here you have an increase in the number of summer camp directors and site supervisors, but you have a big decrease in the number of counselors. Is that a reallocation of those assets, or what can you tell me?
Okay. So we revamped the whole structure of the program in the last couple of years. So we have 25 counselors in the budget. We have a camp director at each site, and then they have an assistant, a site supervisor with them also. The other things we're trying to do is have like a part-time arts and crafts person, a music person, and then we have a behavior person within the camp. So we really haven't decreased too much. Last year I think we had a pretty large decrease in the number of counselors, but this year we're at 25, which will allow us to have 250 children in our camp. That's our goal.
Okay, that makes sense. So maybe like the archery specialist and the nature specialist are now included in some of these other numbers?
Yeah, like we had a waterfront director and a CIT director. Those are all kind of built in, so other people are going to take on those responsibilities.
Okay, that's great. And just a final thought, regarding the tennis resurfacing, the last thing that the town needs is for someone to twist an ankle on something that could have been repaired. So thank you all very much for all of your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
And please
Diane.
do not get me wrong, I was not saying don't do the repairs of the tennis court.
I just want to go back to something when you talk about the increase in what happens in the summer camp, because that's a lot of it. And as I mentioned, maybe I should have stressed it a little more, the enrichment side of what you've been planning and what you're doing with these children. It's all, for people who've been to camp, if all you do is sit and watch your phone, that's not what anybody wants their child to do. And I know there are subscriptions for some of the children that come, so that helps to get them there. But what you're doing is really aiming towards what parents want and what children need for this. And having nature, music, archery, behavioral specialists there, and arts and crafts and things like that. I mean, that gets a child's mind really thinking about things, and I think a lot of parents really, I'm glad you're doing this instead of it being just, knocking a ball around in the yard. So I appreciate that, and I think, as the mayor said, he looks at the total budget, and if there's another place that something could be taken out, let's say, to maintain this, then yeah, I mean, as long, it's the end budget that counts, right? It counts on what we're gonna end up paying and what our taxes are gonna be. And if we can do that based on how the mayor and this group of people here can get it to come out, then children can enjoy this. And if we can't look at spending another couple of nickels for the kids, then we've got to step back and see what the other problems are, because that's really what we should be doing. And I, personally think you do a great job with everything you do over there. But this summer camp is really, it can only continue to get better and more inclusive, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's our goal.
Any other questions for Park and Rec? Thank you,
Great,
guys.
thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Next is Center Cemetery.
Good evening. My name's Susan Sinello, and I'm with the New Milford Center Cemetery. In case anybody doesn't know, we're an 84-acre gem in the center of town, been in operation for over 300 years. We have a full-time superintendent, a full-time groundskeeper/mechanic, and a part-time groundskeeper who works almost full-time. They've been working together for 5 years and make a good team. The cemetery is very grateful for all the assistance we've received from the town over the years. Our revenue production comes from our investments and from cemetery operations. Being a 501c13, we are limited as to what our revenue sources we can have, and the town has been very generous in helping with the shortfall between our revenue and our expenses. In 2022, we increased our prices for pouring monument footings, and this year we have increased the prices of burial rites and grave openings in an effort to cover increasing costs. Last year, with the help of the town, we were able to replace an aging mower with a brand new Turf Tiger. This mower should serve us for several years. This year, we are embarking on a new project, and we didn't know about it until after we had submitted our budget request, but we're very excited about it. And it involves setting aside another section for burials. We're hoping to complete a good portion of the project with our own labor and some donated materials. If you come down and visit us, Section 5 is the big flat section, okay? At the north end, we're extending the road out, and I think it's about a football field length out. And then we're going to bring it back towards the west to meet up with another road that goes up to the north. So that should delineate a couple of sections. And hopefully, on our side of that issue, we can mark out some graves ourselves. All we'd have to do is buy the pins. Okay, and we're not asking for any funding for that, of course, because we didn't know about it until after the budget. Okay, for this budget year, we are anticipating that our expenses will exceed our revenue by $41,694. It's consistent with our requests for prior years and will help us maintain our grounds to the high standards that we and the town expect. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions for the cemetery?
So finally, a new tractor?
Oh, and we had to wait for it. Supply chain issues. We ordered it in March. It didn't come in until November. They didn't even have a chance to use it yet. But they're very happy.
Outstanding.
Thank you very much.
you.
Thank you for everybody doing all that good work down there. Thank you. Next is the Children's Center.
Good evening. Okay.
I want to introduce our new director, Andrea Madlinov. Pardon me. We've had a changing of the guard. Susan Johnston has retired, and we're very happy to have Andrea. And this is Carol, our bookkeeper, finances. Any numbers, she knows where the money is. Comptroller, whatever. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Andrea, please.
Charlie, can you go back? I missed her name. Your new director?
My name is Andrea Mladenoff.
Oh my God, can you spell that?
Yeah, it's Miladinov. And good evening. Thank you so much for having us. As Charlie mentioned, I am the recently appointed executive director over at the Children's Center, and well accompanied by our comptroller, like Charlie said as well. And we just wanted to present our appropriation requests of $155,000 for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. This is an increase of 3.8 over the last year, and that is due to the combination of inflation and minimum wage proving to be the most difficult challenge. We are, of course, looking at various ways beyond asking for an increase from the town to bridge our inflation minimum wage budget gap. You'll see that we're counting on increased income from 4 other funding sources. The Connecticut Office of Early Childhood increased its reimbursement rate for the families on our sliding fee scale and added a COLA adjustment. The Federal Child and Adult Care Food Program increased its reimbursement rate for our food program. We have reviewed the preschool competitive landscape and raised our tuition rate so that our tuition for private families would be in the middle of the tuition ranges for the local preschools. And we have applied for funding from the federal government's Employee Retention Credit Program.
Any questions for the Children's Center? Paul?
How many children do you have at the center right now?
We currently have 70 students.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for all the work you do for our children.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
And welcome, Andrea.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, next is the Housatonic Valley Association budget. Okay, let's turn to page 61. Yes. HVA.
We're gonna argue over $350.
Nope.
I don't know.
And they, obviously, they're part of a multi-tiered town, running all the way up, I believe, to Canaan. They do things such as education on the river. They're applying for some federal monies. This is our Housatonic River from the Boardman Bridge all the way up. Is now a scenic and wildlife federal designee to that. And same amount of money as last year for the recommendation for town in the Milford. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Next is the service officer's budget, page 173. And this is the money that we give each and every year to the American Legion and to the VFW, as you can see, and that's for doing things such as grave flags, repairs of flag poles, helping the VFW, and Ezard Woods, the American Legion. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Next is page 178, which is the nonprofit contributions. This was the same amount as last year and the year prior. And we have various Town of New Milford nonprofits apply. It goes through the nonprofit subcommittee, of which they determine the donated amounts to the nonprofits. Does anybody have any questions?
Where is it published? Who gets the money? Where's that annual sort of?
After it's decided, after the budget's decided, then we meet, go through, and then everybody knows.
And then you publish who got funding? Okay. And it's on the website, or where does it?
I can take a look. If it's not, Hillary, I'll make sure that it is. I'll ask Pat to make sure that it's
I
on
thought
there.
it was.
That's great.
Right, and you're
Any-
aware of what it's all about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Point of information, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
In
Walter.
the absence of the director, who does the marketing and the consultants?
I think you're on these.
Oh, we haven't gone to economic development yet. Sorry.
Where am I?
Slow down.
We were at the nonprofit.
I guess I'm a little bit
Sorry.
ahead of myself.
You're
here.
ahead.
Sorry.
You're ahead.
This is a good thing.
All
You
right.
can jump.
Okay.
Pay attention.
Any other questions on the nonprofits? No. Okay. Let's move over to economic development, which would be page 198
Okay.
and page 200. Okay, so Walter,
Just point of information.
Yes, sir.
Membership, we got marketing and contractual. I'm just curious, who does the marketing and consultants?
okay?
Who takes care of that?
So the digital marketing, right now we have a subcommittee. I'm on the subcommittee. Former Mayor Furman is on the subcommittee. Stephen Gass,
Okay.
who's helped us out on a lot of projects. Ole Karp, who's with the Economic Development Corporation. We are now working with a company called Golden Shovel, who is a well-renowned company who's done many websites and digital impressions
Okay.
for that. And going to the consultants and contractuals, some of the things that we do with that, for instance, what I'm looking for next year is, as the Board of Education is going to be turning over East Street School to the town, is doing a study on East Street. Also, we're going to need to do an appraisal, which is going to be quite expensive for East Street itself. Also, Peagler Hill property that the town owns, we're going to need to do an appraisal on that property as well. Also with DPW, we're looking to do the remediation and looking to do the revitalization of that area. There's going to be some environmental work that's going to need to be done, so that'll be through contractual as well. And also looking at, with the additional mandates coming down from Hartford when it comes to zoning, when it comes to other bills that may or may not pass, that may affect on some of the things we may have to go out for consultants to do to remain in compliance.
Yeah, it was just a point of information.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Hillary?
Was the salary for the pop-up guy, was that out of this office or was that out of the mayor's?
That was out of this one.
Out of this office?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then, and then the director of economic development, that's no longer, that position has been.
Correct, because as we talked about before, we're using more consultants now.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the 95, yeah.
Right.
Great. Sorry, that's the end of my questions. Did you have any?
Any other questions?
I have one.
Katie?
I know we weren't going to get off the budget, but since you mentioned it, how are we doing with these pop-ups?
The pop-ups right now, I believe they're still working. They had a few businesses that were interested, but when they were doing, the corporation was doing their due diligence, it didn't seem like it would be something that would be for that business that would help them. So they're still working on that. Yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Any public who would like to speak tonight?
Yeah, that's not good.
Okay.
Really?
Walter?
Walter, it's up to you.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep, recess.
I keep saying this. Force of habit, 10-year force of
I know,
habit.
right?
Motion to recess, Board of Finance, till tomorrow evening.
So move.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Bye.
And to the council, motion to recess until tomorrow, March 1st.
Oh, so moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everyone. Thank you.